Well, once again, good morning. Thanks for hopping on this Zoom call and having a conversation with TTX and CTG. Our topic for this presentation is the new norm, supporting a distributed workforce with stable and secure IT infrastructure. The first thing I wanted to start off with is obviously we've been living in this new norm for 10 or so weeks. So what comes to my mind is the old saying, there's nothing new under the sun. So we're going to quickly pivot from the issues and obstacles that we've all faced over the last 10 weeks to our experience with those as service providers and thoughts on how we can overcome some of those things maybe more effectively long term. So that's our goal for today. We'll be quickly walking through what just happened, what we've seen, and where do we go from here are kind of the chapters of this presentation that we're looking forward to discussing with you folks. And obviously our hope is that through this conversation, there's something that could spark up where further conversation could be needed or wanted. So we look forward to relationships as always here at TTX for further conversation. So my name's Nate Petrie. I'm the VP of Business Development here at TTX. I've been with the company for 10 years. The organization itself has been around for 40 years, and we're really a technology provider that focuses on IT projects. So whether that's a voice solution, a server migration strategy, wired and wireless solutions, and then supporting of those things. So we're also a managed services provider. We've had that practice stabilized now here for our clients in the marketplace for the last 10 years. So we have a lot of things to say about this new normal. And like I said, with nothing is new under the sun, the technologies have existed for quite some time for people to work remotely. But we are all thrown into this thing probably unexpectedly. I know we were, supporting a lot of different customers and sizes and locations. There was things that we had to pivot on very quickly that quite frankly, we weren't prepared for, just like internal IT folks were for different organizations. So at this time, I'd like to invite the rest of the panelists to join me and provide an introduction to themselves.
Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us. My name is Aaron Clark. I've been with TTX for 13 years now, have extensive background in designing and deploying voice solutions in corporate environments. I currently serve as a technical account manager. I support both our sales team and also work closely with our project and support teams in the design of unified communication systems and more specifically advanced contact center applications. So I have a foot in both the sales side and the engineering side. I really enjoy my client-facing discussions with supervisors and management teams. More specifically around building consumer interaction strategies, using and understanding business analytics, and then how to leverage all of those technologies to offer a better customer experience. So obviously this whole COVID pandemic has certainly changed the business landscape, and I'm really excited to be here with Nate and with Chad to talk about what that looks like.
Yeah, it's great to be on today with everyone. Thanks for having me. Always enjoy being part of the extended TTX family. My background, I've had the opportunity to work in security for some time now, starting out as a consultant in the operator chair, as I like to call it, and then moving on from there to be an IT manager for a publicly traded company where I worked on securing, networks and endpoints across 3 continents and 5 different locations for some time here in Northeast Ohio. And after that, I was running operations for a large MSP out of Cleveland, and in my role today, I function both as the managing director for the cyber technology group and also as the IT director for Bober Markey Fedorovich, a 100-person regional accounting firm here based out of Akron and Cleveland. So I keep the edge of my cybersecurity axe sharp as an operator from the day-to-day perspective for the firm, and also I provide security consulting services directly to internal and external clients, and often partner with TTX in that process. So very glad to be with you today. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Chad, for joining TTX. We love our partnership with CTG, and just so the attendees know, CTG really rounds out TTX's offering to the marketplace. Where we don't go on the security side is where Chad comes in and really supports our total holistic IT support of our customers. So thanks for being part of the conversation and the partnership. Appreciate it. So let's get underway. What in the world just happened? We all know what happened because it was 10 weeks ago. But to set a base camp, Chad, why don't you just briefly talk to us about the experience that we all faced and for the most part have overcome through this crazy pandemic that we're all still in the midst of?
Yeah, it's been, from my perspective, in both the technology and cybersecurity space, it's been a rapid, it's been forced, and it's been dispersed. So all the change we've recently gone through, we didn't ask for it. It happened quickly, and it's kind of spread us out a little bit. So now we're trying to control and secure multiple networks. Some things like lack of preparedness have been exposed in our organizations and in our end users. It's created demand for rapid innovation and our ability to distribute technology and new communications methods to our folks, and Aaron will talk to that for sure. And then we've seen new and increased cybersecurity attacks. The bad guys don't rest. They don't take a day off. The surface area for those attacks has dramatically increased. Now you're working with all of these disparate networks, as well as still thinking about what's back home at the ranch. Still thinking about your server closet, your data center, and wanting to secure those, of course. But in the process, the perimeter has just disintegrated. There is no perimeter anymore, and so now we're having to expand the way that we think about all of this stuff. And so that's my quick 3 bullets. Is it's been rapid, it's been forced, and it's been dispersed. So
from a voice perspective, we really have had to reassess what remote teleworking is. It's something that's been around for a number of years. It's not anything that's new to us. But if you think about it, it's been more of a luxury as we talk about maybe a sales team being on the road and having access through mobility features. But Chad, you mentioned this rapid and forced change, and we very quickly had to move to from a luxury standpoint to a forced necessity. I mean, if you think about it, we've had departments and in a lot of cases, even entire companies that have moved their workforce home. And that's created a lot of hurdles and not probably, but the single biggest one that came out of that from a voice perspective is how do we move phone activity home? And that might seem like an easy task, but it certainly isn't. And there's a lot that came out of that we saw with voice quality and connectivity issues. When we talk about voice quality, it's voice communications is a real time thing, and we can't have delays, we can't have disconnects. We'll probably experience to some extent a little bit of that in this call today with choppy voice. It's something that we have lost a lack of control over, because when we're in a corporate or a corporate network or a corporate environment, there's a lot of different mechanisms that we can put in place to control that. And we can say, you know what, voice takes top priority, top precedence above any other type of communication going on in the network. So in those times where we have bottlenecks and slowdowns, voice shoots right to the top of that list and isn't impacted. And now as we move workers home, we're working now with home internet service providers that could care less about voice quality and voice priority. They aren't honoring that. And then you've got home grade routers and firewalls that probably don't have the ability to be configured for honoring and prioritizing those voice packets. So that's been a real struggle. There's a lot of added variables to that as well, as you think about spouses working from home at the same time, both of them engaging on video conferences. You've got kids that all of a sudden had to do all of their school activity through the internet. You've got little Jimmy streaming Netflix or playing Xbox Live that's now just adding to all this traffic that's going on the home network that sends things out of control when it comes to voice quality. Something else that kind of came out of that too was a struggle to maintain easy communication, both internally with teams within an organization and then externally with our customers and consumers. Sadly, the quarantine and the shutdown caused a lot of companies to have to make cutbacks, and so your staffing levels are dramatically increased. And now we're fighting for ways to connect with our customers, or allowing our customers to connect with us, more importantly. And we don't have the staffing that goes along with that. And then going back to something that Chad said, when you think about the fast, rapid, and forced move home, that all fell on the IT staffs of the world to figure out. They didn't have time to plan for that. They put in long hours. They had new technology to learn, and then they suddenly had to support many more networks when you start bringing in all these home users than they're used to. So there was a lot of IT burnout that came through this as well.
Yeah, I think it, like any service provider and people that are on the front lines, there's the good thing about the pandemic is we come together as Americans through bad stuff, right? So we become more thankful of our nurses and our medical field, and certainly we're not saving lives, but IT people did a lot of hard work to get us where we could still do business and still have relationships on the business side together. So kudos to all of you that have done that. So that is what has happened, right? It's been 10 weeks. So going into what are some of the things that we've seen, some of the things that we can call out because we have access to a wide variety of businesses, so we can share from a value standpoint. So what are some of the limitations we've seen, guys, with technology throughout the last 10 weeks, and how that has either prohibited businesses from executing things or has, deeply got in the way of that now that we're all remote?
Yeah, so I think I just touched on one of those with voice quality. If you think about, I've got 3 points here with issues, and then how some companies, found ways to successfully address those. So in terms of voice quality, it's a question at TTX that our help desk was just hit with left and right when COVID first hit and everybody starts working from home. Is, all right, what's the one solution that's going to fix all these issues for us from a voice perspective? How do we get our voice quality back? And the thing that we saw is that really it's not a one size fits all deal. Companies that have unified communication systems, and it doesn't matter if it's premise based or cloud based, but flexible systems are really what won out. And so companies that had that flexibility to offer different options to different users within that same company were very successful. So a couple of those, you can deploy a soft phone, which is just a piece of software on a PC or laptop. You can send calls or redirect calls externally to a cell phone. You could load an app on a mobile device and have some mobility features. And then you could deploy some types of edge gateways, which allow users to actually take their desk phone that they used in the office home with them. And, external assignment might not work for some because they have terrible cell service at their house, whereas, soft phone might be a better option. Soft phone might not work for a particular set of users because they have, DSL or some low grade home bandwidth that just isn't sufficient to support voice. So That's the key there. I think that the companies that were successfully able to quickly react to this remote workforce are ones that had flexible phone systems. And another issue that came out was how to address productivity. And all of a sudden, we've got users at home with potentially a different set of tools and new, noisier environments, distracting environments. So, looking at businesses that had business continuity, meaning the same tool set that they had in the office, they could take that home with them, one out. Companies that had ways for offering real-time collaboration through document sharing and through video conferences like this. And then obviously the visibility and accountability that came out of that as well, and being able to see what our users are doing at home and making sure that they are being productive. And then probably the last one was and I mentioned it briefly in my last response, is the consumer interaction piece. So, sadly, we had a lot of companies that reduced their staffing levels, and so limited staff created this need for client engagement beyond just voice. And so companies that recognize that, I mean, these are discussions that Nate and I particularly started having with clients before COVID hit, but really has accelerated through this time, is how do we engage with our clients beyond just the phone, because we might not have the staff to accommodate that. And then being able to find ways to offer real-time self-service options, whether that's through the website or some other means of communicating with the organization. So those companies that were looking at that were successfully offloading the voice stress and being able to find new and effective ways to engage their customers.
Yeah, that's great. So Chad, from your seat, we went from supporting potentially one organization with, users at one location to now 50, 60 offices, right? Home offices. So how have things changed and the technology deficiencies you've seen?
So the things that we've seen include some shifting of both attention and workload. And when you are in what used to be normal, you had a limited number of networks and devices to secure within those networks. As I said before, the perimeter disintegrating right before our very eyes has really shifted the focus from the network to the endpoint, meaning that device that you either hold in your hand or the laptop, that sits on your desk at home, or that you take with you when you're traveling. So companies now have to really think about how they're going to shore up the gaps in endpoint security and monitoring and alerting. IT teams had done a pretty good job of putting things in place to monitor and protect the corporate network. That, people are doing a fairly decent job of that these days. They might even have implemented a security information and event monitoring solution. They might have even been getting some alerts, if there was intruder activity on their network. But now we have to reevaluate in some cases, were we really ready to have a mobile workforce when it comes to this idea of cybersecurity? Is that laptop that now sits inside of the user's home network, is it safe and secure as far as we know? And if something goes wrong on that laptop, how are we to find out about it? How are we to know? Do we have centralized management? Do we have the ability to read the logs across all of our systems, even though they're in 100 new places now? So that's been a big shift, and I think I've seen a lot of shortfall in that area, to be honest with you, in terms of both the types of products that users that companies have and have been able to deploy, and then the nature in which those products work together and centralize their administration. And that leads into really the biggest thing that I've seen, and I'm just going to say this is a time where you've seen where debts have been called in. Debts are being called in right now because in some ways, traditionally, the traditional view of IT, and let's lump in security, although they're distinct thoughts, let's lump security in with IT for just a minute, because the traditional view of a lot of companies when it comes to information technology has been, well, this is just a cost center. It's kind of a necessary evil. And Mr. or Mrs. IT person, keep costs down and keep production high. You get those two goals accomplished and you're doing a good job. And so we've been making minimum payments like you do on a credit card for a while. You know how that happens to a person in the end, and what happens, you end up paying a lot more in the long run when you do that. And we've been making minimum payments when it comes to our cybersecurity posture, to our lack of getting security audits and penetration tests, to the investments that we're making in endpoint security and monitoring solutions. We've been making minimum payments on training our personnel, on getting soft skills, brought up to date, working on having good documentation. We've been making minimum payments on mountains of debt, and now we're finding that we're struggling a little bit, and IT teams are struggling to catch up because we weren't necessarily prepared. No one was really prepared for this whole situation, but it exposed a greater lack of preparedness in general. And because the conversation has now shifted from like just do you do backups to now it's more like, well, how resilient is your company if you have an incident? How resilient is your business if something actually does happen that's really bad? What if you do get a data breach? What if an endpoint is compromised? What if you do get ransomware? It's now more difficult to answer those questions because of the things that we've been putting off for the quote unquote sake of saving money. In the long run, it ends up costing you more when you put those things off. If you never change the oil in your car is going to break down, and then it's going to get really expensive, even though it's cheaper in the short run to not change your oil. So I've also seen the need in that conversation for training for IT staff and for end users as well. And that's not necessarily an inherent skill set with a lot of IT teams. Some IT teams have great training regimen and protocol, but I think that's also been highlighted in this time. And it's a thing that needs to be addressed. The need for training is very real and very important right now, almost critical.
Yeah, it's super interesting. The word you're talking about, the debt being needing to be paid. So I had a really interesting conversation with one of my enterprise customers this week, and they've been struggling with quite some time with the cost of real estate for their company, right? And culturally, some people want to work from home, and leadership is apprehensive to that. But now, because of COVID, they've made investments and done things in a quick turnaround that the capabilities are well perceived and well aware by everyone in the organization that the capability is there. So my question is, do you think stay at home, or work from home, I should say, is work from home going to be the new normal? Or is it something that's just a temporary thing?
Aaron, I'll jump on this one real quick, Aaron, and toss it to you. I think there's no doubt that a lot of this stuff is here to stay in some measure. We don't quite know exactly how it's here to stay, but there's no doubt in my mind that it's here to stay. Twitter is now allowing everyone to work from home for the rest of their lives, forever. And I think Aaron has some information on some other companies that are doing some similar things, but I am definitely of the opinion that we're going to see a hybrid type of approach from here on out.
Yeah, I was reading something yesterday, or maybe it was the day before. I think it was Nationwide and Barclays are considering at minimum a hybrid model where they're going to keep some of their offices open to provide space for employees that want to come in, but are going to encourage and allow users to work from home. And I had a conversation with a client of TTX yesterday. They're a decently sized, medium-sized business with offices all over the globe, and they have made the decision already 100%, except for warehouse workers, 100% going forward, permanent work from home, which really surprised me. But yeah, they've called that already. So, and I think what's coming out of that and driving, whether it's the hybrid model or going full remote workforce, is that, just how it's brought to light general health and safety. So obviously this is a huge deal with the pandemic and COVID, but there were a lot of trends in the last 5 to 10 years with open offices and open workspace and getting rid of walls. I think Apple just built a massive new headquarters that it was just all open office, open air. And I think they're seeing how that impacts people's health and safety I think also companies have had to make a lot of cuts, as we've talked about with staffing. They've lost a lot of business through this, sadly, and so getting rid of physical brick and mortar stores in some cases is a way that they can cut costs. And they've seen proof that productivity, really hasn't suffered. So, we've seen that at TTX. Chad, I know we've talked about that with Bober Markey and CTG, and the technology that we have at our disposal in today's day and age makes it easier for companies to be able to support that, and for users to be able to be productive, just as productive, if not more productive, from home.
Yeah. I think it also highlights an opportunity. Like you've mentioned opportunities. There are some benefits coming to light here. And for sure, one of those opportunities, if my local staff can work remotely, certainly more remote, farther out people could work. So I have an opportunity to bring in talent to my organization that isn't, within 30-mile radius of where my business is now. So it's also highlighting that kind of opportunity for both service providers to step in from afar, yep, or from near, like us, and for companies to hire staff and bring on talent that maybe they don't actually need to live right where your org lives.
I mean, there's two things that worry me there, with it becoming the new normal. From being on the leadership team at TTX, my first concern is, the technology exists to work remote, but the thing that we care about the most at TTX is humans. So what happens to our culture, right? So that thing for businesses to figure out, to still have the root of who we are as organizations and people doing business with people, I think is really scary to me, on how we overcome that desire to work from home and the technology to do it. And then furthermore, also TTX, a business that I'm part of, the support of that. So it's really good for me as a bad end user to be able to walk across the hallway and get support, but now that I'm remote and working remotely and such, to be able to get support seems to be more difficult. So what do you guys think about that? How are we as IT professionals going to be able to support this remote workforce?
At the risk of sounding like this is just like a shameless plug or something like that, I really do think that it's time for companies to consider bringing in outside expertise, calling in the big guns, when you have, especially when there's like high need specialized areas like cybersecurity or voice. Like, these are areas that a lot of our everyday network administrators and IT sysadmins out there don't necessarily have deep expertise in some of these more critical business functioning areas. And so businesses really need to consider putting their money where their mouth is when they say we're really concerned about the quality of our end user experience and things like voice, and also the security of our client data and our internal data in terms of like cybersecurity. So I really do think this is a good opportunity for partnership with third-party organizations to help manage key projects or perform key functions for your organizations. We consider that too. How can we leverage, strategically and effectively leverage third-party resources to enhance our experience all around for our people? If we want people to have a good experience as remote workers, we've got to press on that. We really need to press on that and think hard about it and start putting budget dollars to that, or even unbudgeted dollars to that, now that the need has been so much more revealed in today's COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 soon to be work culture.
I would say generally small businesses, Chad, are probably more, and when I say small businesses, extremely small businesses with very limited IT people on staff are certainly much more open to having discussions with outside resources to take over a lot of that. But even looking at some of the larger businesses that have a fully deployed support desk and engineers that are able to support the organization, they're overwhelmed. I mean, Nate, you and I have had a couple conversations with several different clients of TTX that that can't keep up with it. I mean, they're pulling 12, 13, 14-hour days still trying to support all of these remote users. So I think you're probably going to start to see even those organizations open up and be willing to offload some of the responsibilities, especially when it comes to something like security or even just some staff augmentation to help with the support of all this remote workforce. I don't think it has to necessarily be an all or nothing thing where, hey, we're going to outsource our entire IT staff. I think and we can certainly do that. And I think you see companies open to that, but I think you're going to see more of a, we talked about a hybrid model with businesses and working from home. I think you could see a hybrid model with offloading some of those IT responsibilities to third parties. I think go ahead, Nate, you got a question?
Yeah, I was going to mention, I'm already a self-proclaimed bad user, so that's the truth. So I'll continue.
Well, I was getting to you, but go ahead.
Yeah. You maybe the thing that I've noticed with not having the ability to walk across the hallway is I've been trying a lot more things on my own. Like there's some good to that. Instead of me, putting in a ridiculous ticket on how do I change my password, that's something that should be self-service that I can figure out and certainly probably have the capability to. I just take the easy way. So I'm curious if there's things organizations are probably going to start doing to train bad users on how to do more self-service tools and accomplish things on their own.
Yeah, I think for sure that we're already seeing that. Whether it's end users, whether it's mid-level management teams, that for a long time, I think a lot of us have relied on one, maybe two people for a specific skill set. I just got done doing a remote session with a local company here in Cleveland yesterday that they lost the individual that ran all of their reports and business analytics sets for their call center. It was one guy that was his job, was to run those reports on a daily basis, and he's gone now. And so they reached out to me and said, hey, what we'd really like to do, rather than replace him, we'd like to train 6 or 7 people to be able to run those reports, understand that data, understand what we need to be looking at. So we're not reliant on that one person anymore, because they've lost 2 weeks of time since he left. And so I think you're really going to see an increased focus on training, whether it's for the Nate Petries of the world that are just terrible end users and need to take a little bit more responsibility with understanding, their own laptop and the programs that run on it, or, like the example that I just gave with training, rather than being reliant on one person to deliver a specific skill set, spreading that out to multiple individuals.
Yeah, my wife thinks I'm a bad user too, so you're not alone. She trained me to do the dishes, which has been her goal for the last 15 years. Cool. Well, I know one of the things that we were really excited about at TTX before this pandemic going into the year was how technology is changing and has changed to allow customers to engage with their partners and clients the way that they want to, right? So different avenues of communication are possible, and the technology is really coming up to speed with that from our vantage point. And now we have COVID and things have changed, and our call center agents and our support people, all the customers we support, are working from home. So Aaron, kind of a question for you, how's COVID affected customer engagement, and where can the technology help with that as well?
Yeah, great question. I think where we were starting to get to before this even hit, my background and the conversations that Nate and I in particular really like to have with clients are call center related. But we got to this point where we started to realize that consumer engagement, it doesn't matter what your business is or your business model is. We all engage with customers, with consumers, and we don't have to be a contact center to start thinking about what our consumer engagement strategies are. And so, for a long time, voice has been king. And I would say that it's still king, but now more than ever, I think we're starting to see that, we have to find more ways to engage with clients beyond just voice. But, even before we get there to define what those different channels or communication paths are, we need to start by understanding now more than ever when customers contact a business, they're really looking for four basic things. And one of those is reliability. So when somebody engages with a business, they want to know that business is dependable. They also are looking for assurance. So they want to make sure that they've made the right decision. And we can do that, and we can help with that by being helpful when we engage with them and meeting expectations during those different interactions. And then the third one, which I actually probably would put at the top of the list, is empathy. People want to feel understood, and they're looking for personalized attention. And so, we've all been in that situation where we call into customer support and we sit on hold forever. Maybe we get asked a couple of automated questions about our phone number, account number, whatever it is, what we're calling about. And then we finally get to a point where somebody picks up and they ask us all those same questions again. Can you imagine that experience now being where you call in and an agent picks up? They already know who you are. They already know what you're calling about. And they already have all of your contact information about whatever it is you're calling in about right there in front of them. And then responsiveness would be the fourth thing. Customers don't want to wait. It doesn't matter if they're walking into a store, which we can't do right now. Doesn't matter if they're calling in. Doesn't matter if they're coming in through an email or a web chat or something like that. They just don't want to wait. And so with those things in mind, I think now we can form this foundation for any consumer interaction discussion where we can start looking at technologies like the use of web chat or SMS or email or even social media or all the advancements that companies like Google are doing with artificial intelligence for self-service. So I think what we're going to start to see is that small businesses in particular will start to invest in not only those products, but start having those discussions. Something else I think we're going to start to see is that small businesses will begin to invest in more open and flexible communication platforms to bring disparate interactions together into more of a single pane of glass. So we simplify that technology stack that end users are using, especially now as they're working from home. So rather than having to jump into all these different applications, we can have everything all in one simple pane of glass and be interacting with our customers in different ways. So out of that, or really in order for that to happen, I think you're also going to start to see, the manufacturers of these technology products start to open up their environments for development and providing more access to APIs. And we're already seeing that with Apple. I mean, can you think back, 6-7 years on the iPhone? No chance that you're going to be able to customize that thing. Now, Steve Jobs is probably rolling over in his grave as he looks at the fact that Apple's partnering with Google to provide an open API for applications to use for contact tracing in this pandemic. So it's pretty crazy what's going on, but I think you're really going to start to see a move towards towards that open environment, that development, and bringing all of those integrations into one. I know I could probably answer that in a long-winded way. I guess I would leave it at this, that, if voice is your only method of communicating, chances are that your remote workforce is probably struggling with internal collaboration and meeting customer needs, or figuring out how to meet those customer needs. And then worse, you're probably losing out to what could have been potential customers who are now having more meaningful engagements with somebody else, unfortunately.
Fantastic, Aaron. I've worked with you for 10 years, and your passion to figure out how technology can best serve customer interaction and business processes always amazes me. So again, without sounding like a shameful plug, that would be the first way to engage after this WebEx, is to gain access to Aaron's knowledge and experience to talk about your customers' experience as they engage with you in the multiple ways that you can effectively handle that. So thanks so much, Aaron.
Yeah, you bet.
Chad, cybersecurity. What have you seen change? What's the solution? What's the next steps for customers to get everything honed back in now that everything's so dispersed?
Nate, it's a lot to think about. As Aaron was sharing about his ideas there, and the variety of new technologies to engage with, and the variety of new communication channels to bring in, centralizing those things, like, in a way, that brings me to like a kind of a healthy place of fear, because there's every time you add something new to your suite of tools, it brings in, for me, the next logical question is, are these tools secured? Are they safe? Is that third party? Do they have security and my best interest in mind for me and my clients? And so that lends itself to some ideas with how to move forward here with the cybersecurity perspective. And I think it's time to take the conversation from we should do that, to we're way behind here and we need to take action, right? So now is the time to engage with cybersecurity folks who can get you that assessment, who can get you that audit, who can help you do those checkups, right? Stop putting off your annual physical so you don't fall down and die from a heart attack that was easily preventable, but for the sake of, time or convenience, you weren't getting your checkups. Sometimes there's no sign until it's too late. So I think it's time to take your IT and cybersecurity programs to a next level, also with training. So, get on board with user awareness training if you're not there already. Talk to somebody like a provider similar to us, right? Get on board with dark web monitoring solution. Get ahead of the game. We need to stop being behind the curve here and get ahead of it. With COVID-19, we talked about flattening the curve. With cybersecurity, we have to talk about getting ahead of the curve, planning ahead and being proactive in a way where we can get ahead of situations and get proactive alerts on things like exposed company credentials on the dark web. So I would say, subscribe to a system and a solution that can help you do that, and learn more about what that is, and bring in the experts that can train your staff and help you get your cybersecurity program to the next level. And I also think it's time to outsource critical IT functions that have been neglected. And it's time to add senior IT leadership to your program if you don't have the expertise in-house. So it's time to make a philosophical shift and a financial shift to really place these kinds of things at the forefront of what's important. Because, if you read last year's data breach, the cost of a data breach report from IBM, and the average cost of a data breach is something like $8.19 million. And the impact and effects of it lasts for years. And that's old data that I'm talking about right there. So in a loving way, I would like to say it's time to put some of those things in a more of a place of importance for all of our organizations.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. And, that's also, again, a call to action potentially from this WebEx is to engage with Chad as it relates to security concerns that we all have and we don't know where to go. And one of the reasons we love partnering with Chad is, at TTX, our tagline is technically people matter. And Chad is a man of integrity that fits so good in the space of cybersecurity. He doesn't sell on fear. That the words that he just said are as bold as he gets. The facts are out there from a fear standpoint. And Chad just wants to, help assist companies to become more secure and secure their businesses because he cares about people. So thanks so much for your words of action there potentially, Chad. We appreciate your partnership.
Thank you.
Well, that is our WebEx for today, our Zoom call, I should say. We thank you so much for your time. You've kind of heard some potential call to actions. People that know us and people that don't, our main focus is people. So we long to have further conversations. Are we a sales organization? Yes, because we're in business and we're a for-profit company. But we care about people ultimately more than the bottom line. We can do that because we're a family-owned and operated business, and our leaders care about humans. So we'd love to have an opportunity if something cracked open there, or if you liked our insight, or certainly if the strategies that we briefly touched on want further conversations. We're definitely here for you and would love to make the time. We can do more Zoom calls until we hopefully get back to the old normal. That's my vote. But we're here for you and we appreciate your time. One of the things that I failed to mention at the beginning, folks, is that we are engaging with the Q&A technology on Zoom. So if there are any conversations, we'll definitely leave it open here for a couple minutes before we close today. And we can certainly do that.
While folks are thinking about that, maybe getting a question queued up there in the Q&A in Zoom there. It's along the bottom if you can't find it right there in the Zoom thing, but while folks are doing that. So Verizon has just released and made public their annual data breach investigation report. So if anybody's interested, that's free. Verizon doesn't charge for that, and it is available. So if anybody wants to, gather that up, you just hit Verizon's website, go to enterprise.verizon.com, and you can get a copy of that. It's if you want to fall asleep easily at night, it is 119 pages of cybersecurity report. So if you're having a little bit of trouble sleeping in this COVID-19, just go ahead and grab a copy of that and read that as you go to sleep.
Chad, there is one question here directed to you. Apparently your black web comment sparked something, and the person would like to just understand a little bit more what you mean by black web scan.
So dark web scanning is a tool that we have in our suite to offer to clients to enter in their email domain and scan the dark web. The dark web is a shady place that lives just below the surface of the kind of, let's call it the public internet, where company credentials are often put up for sale when they're grabbed. And password reuse is the heart of this problem, because people tend to use the same passwords for both personal and corporate stuff. If, let's say, there was a data breach at like LinkedIn, well, if you're using your LinkedIn password at your home office for corporate work, and those credentials from LinkedIn get leaked and then exposed and put up for sale on the dark web, your company could be at risk, and you might have somebody sitting in your inbox and you might not even know it. So a dark web scanning tool like ours will go out and scan the dark web and these forums that are often where these things get put up for sale, kind of like the credential black market. And then our system will alert the client, hey, we found your corporate email address associated with some credentials out there, so you should take some proactive measures, change a password, enable multi-factor, things like that. So we have a solution that does that and alerts on it in an automated fashion. That's dark web monitoring in a nutshell.
Great, thanks for that. Aaron, one follow-up question for you in relationship to what we call in the business omnichannel, but the question specifically are, what other ways are you seeing people interact outside of voice?
Yeah, well, so just to clarify, voice is not dead. Voice is going to be around for the foreseeable future. There's certainly those times where we want to or need to pick up the phone and get an answer now, but I think too, there are other opportunities for engagement with your customers through web chat, which has been around for a long time, right? I mean, that's not something new, but being able to go to a website and ask a quick question. And I think with that, you're really starting to see, and I know I've had these discussions where you kind of get this like pushback of, well, that's not a good experience. But when it comes to chatbots and Google AI, there's been a ton of advancements in the last year alone with humanizing those interactions. So, I mean, if you think about it, there are certainly opportunities where you can provide a pretty simple question and answer response through a web chat that might offload some of the questions that normally would come into a team of individuals within an organization. My favorite example to use in that is email. So I don't think there's a single company that doesn't engage in some way, shape, or form through email with people. But what are you doing with that email? How are you tracking with that email? So if you're sending out a marketing blast and in that email you list a phone number or a website, are you tracking how many interactions or clicks that you're getting from that? And not only the clicks, but generating activity in where you're actually now engaging with those clients. And then quickly, a couple other ones would be SMS. So that's really big right now, being able to just from a cell phone send in a quick text message. We have a client that we provide that service for that does travel registration and travel arrangements. And so as people are, when they used to fly through the airports and had to quick make a change of flight or a hotel or whatever it is, they can do that all through a quick text message on the phone.
Yeah, I think it goes back to my initial opening. Nothing's new under the sun. All those things have existed, but the cool thing that Aaron and I have, been leading the charge with in our marketplace is there's technology in place now that allows agents to do all those things from one pane of glass. But furthermore, for supervisors to have the analytics on all of that stuff, so it's all an engine that gathers those tools together, which does feel new under the sun to some extent.
All right. If Chad, I think this one's for you. So if an organization is looking to formalize a cyber program in a partner cyber as a service option, what do you suggest on where to begin without saying start with an assessment? Smiley face.
Smiley face.
Tools, processes in place, but do not have the budget bandwidth to have internal staff.
So if I understand the question correctly, this might sound cliche, but I would say a conversation is probably a great place to start, just so I can understand. Like, I would love to understand a little bit more of the nuances of that question. It was a great question, but I still find myself thinking like more things. What does that mean? Like, what do you have in place now today? Do you need policies and procedures? Do you need just general guidance? Do you need, you could do short-term, chief security officer engagement for a couple months on retainer to get the program kicked off. You could start with some skeleton stuff in terms of policies and procedures, kind of thing. But I would say let's schedule a Zoom call and talk through that. And as I understand a little bit more about the need, I could provide some better guidance there, and then make some good recommendations from that point going forward.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And, especially with the smiley face in the question, I think there was openness shown there. So, no, that's great. Well, we want to be aware of time. So I think that's the last question that came in. You guys confirm that?
Yep. I don't see any more.
Great. Well, we greatly appreciate it. As an action item from this call, I think you could expect one more email from TTX/CTG from a marketing standpoint, just as a follow-up. Get your opinions would be greatly helpful. Any further Q&A, we'd gladly answer afterwards. And then obviously just a quick email if there is a call to action that you would like to execute on, to have that vehicle to do that with the both of us. So we appreciate your time. Thanks, Chad and Aaron. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Absolutely.